Welcome everybody. This the first of hopefully long series of webinar. We, as PANAP, the Pan African Network for Analysis of Policy, would like to organize, showing to the wider public some of the results of the work we have been doing at the GRC, at FARA, and together with many of the members of the network. So I don't know, Kwaku, do you want to do the introduction of this specific seminar? You want me to go ahead?
Go ahead, please.
Okay, all right. So the start today is first of all, thanks to the panelists. So today we have a specific work. A specific work on Kenya, but we will see during the presentation that also goes beyond the specific case study. So we'll talk about the modeling the impact on agri-food and nutrition policies on labor productivity. So we will look at the insights from Kenya, but we'll see also that the possibility to expand this insight perhaps to other countries. So contrary to what we announced, we have a small change in the panelists. So Sofia Jimenez cannot be with us, but we will have Maria Priscila Ramos and Stefania Custodio that will present this work. We're also supported by Martina Sartori and somehow also by me, but very minor my contribution. So Maria Priscila Ramos is a researcher at the National Scientific and Research Council of Argentina. She's assistant professor of international economics and with a very, very large experience in using economic simulation model, in particular CG models, in issue of agriculture, environmental, trade analysis. So is an expert in the use of these models, and with also wider collaboration with many international research institutes, including the GRC. On the other hand, Stefania Custodio also has been working at GRC, but is now a research fellow at the Instituto de Salud Carlos III in Spain. And she's an expert in nutrition, food security, and health, but specifically for low and middle income countries. So she's bachelor in science and also master in nutrition and international public health, specializing in the integration of nutrition, health, and food security measurements and analysis. So I was saying she's been working for the European Commission at the JRC, the Joint Research Center, with specific analysis for European policy on food and nutrition security. So they are our two main panels. The idea would be the following. I will leave them the floor. They are sharing and presenting the work. Is not just one single work, it's a combination of several works that they will present. Let's say they will present in 30-40 minutes, more or less, and then we will open the floor for questions from the public. You can, during the presentation, perhaps start also sending questions via the Q&A or the chat, but I would leave them to finalize the presentation, and then we collect all the questions we have. Then after that, we will have another 30 minutes, let's say, for Q&A, so that we will end after hour 20, hour 15, hour 20, an hour and 20. And then we will draw maybe some very quick conclusion. So as I said, the seminar will be recorded, so we will then also share the videos on our web tools, and on top, the presenter also agreed to share the presentation. So the presentation will be shared to the people that have been registered to the seminar, together with the materials that has been produced so far, and that will be summarized and presented during the presentation. So this said, I think to me there is little left now to be added, apart from giving the word to the presenters. I didn't present myself, by the way. So I'm Emanuele Ferrari from the Joint Research Center, and member of the PANAP Secretariat, together with Kwaku from the Forum from Agricultural Research in Africa, FARA. So perhaps maybe I did the opening, you will do the closure, Kwaku, so we share 50-50 the burden. Priscilla, if you want to start sharing, so we check everything is working. Good. Can you go in presentation mode, please? Perfect. Floor is yours. Perhaps I will let you know in 30-35 minutes so that you have an idea of how long you still go ahead, right?
Okay.
Are you starting, Stefania? Sorry, so
Yes,
Stefania
I
is
start.
starting. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
thank you, Emanuele.
Good. You have the word. You have the word.
Yes, thank you, Emanuela. Welcome everyone to this webinar, and thank you for inviting us to present our work. As Emanuele has already highlighted, we are a multidisciplinary team. So we have economic researchers, experts, and as well as food security and nutrition. As he already mentioned, but this work originated in GRC, in the team of Emanuele Ferrari. That's where all the team members, we were part of the Joint Research Center at some point, and that's where this work and this research started. So the outline of the presentation would be next. We would first talk about the background of objectives of this area of work, and then we would present the results of the final two works that we have been conducting, that would be in charge of Priscilla, the economic approach, the macro modeling, policy scenarios that we are considering, and conclusions and future research. Next. So why Kenya? Why did we develop this research in Kenya? Well, the team at GRC had already collaborations in policy assessment in Kenya with a welfare perspective. But the situation in terms of food insecurity and malnutrition in Kenya were challenging. There are around 1 million people that are in crisis for food insecurity, according to IPC, and many other countries that have critical levels of acute malnutrition, and that is for year 2024. That are the two maps that we have. In the top, there is the food insecurity, level 3 crisis, and down the malnutrition, acute malnutrition with phase 4. Even with a longer perspective, in the last demographic and health survey, we had 18% of chronic malnutrition, 10% of underweight, and 3% of overweight among children under 5, although overweight is way higher in adult populations. And also the last macronutrient surveys showed high rates of anemia, iron deficiency anemia in women and children. And although that survey is from years ago, the subnational surveys that have been taken ever since don't show any improvement in anemia. So Kenya was facing food insecurity challenges as well as all forms of malnutrition. And the government was very keen in tackling those food insecurity and malnutrition issues and asking for policy assessment, not only in the impact in welfare, but impacting food security and nutrition. So next slide, please. So that's how this STEAM started to work. The challenge was to measure the impact of policies, specifically agricultural policies, on food and security and nutrition. So the first thing that we had to do was to identify if there were food security and nutrition indicators that we could use at household level to do this macro-micro simulation approach. So we explored the Kenya Integrated Household Budget Survey, looking at the different modules, variables, data that was available in that survey that would allow us to create nutrition and food security indicators that were solid and reliable. We did that work in collaboration with the FAO, Statistical Division. We finally identified the food consumption module as well as the FIES, that is the Food Insecurity Experience Scale modules, to construct these indicators. We have the first publication that you have there in the left in the bottom, shows the publication where we explained and described how this food consumption module was used to create nutrition indicators in collaboration with FAO. Once we have the food security and nutrition indicators within this survey, we started measuring the impact of agricultural policies in these food security and nutrition indicators that we had created. We published a GRC technical report in 2021, and a year later, a paper explaining this impact of agricultural policies in food security and nutrition. However, we wanted to take a step further. Next slide, please. As we were aware of these reverse circular dynamics between welfare and food security and nutrition. So we had done before the previous slide. So what we had done in the first work is to see how policies that had an impact on welfare could also affect food consumption and food security and nutrition positively. But then we wanted to see the other side of the coin. No? If we improve food consumption in terms of calories, in terms of nutrients, how can we, what is the impact on welfare? So we see that, increasing calories and nutrients as well, it's an additional driver to increasing labor productivity, additional to other drivers that we already know as health and education, and that can have an impact on economic growth that would also have an impact in macro and at household level welfare. So these were the dynamics that we want to study. Next slide, please. As we would see, we frame it within the UN Sustainable Development Goals. What we wanted to see is to consider food insecurity and nutrition, or achieving the food security and nutrition situation of the SDG 2, Zero Hunger, as a driver of labor productivity to evaluate policies that promote economic growth, or SDG 8. What were the linkages between SDG 2 and SDG 8? Next slide, please. So we looked at we did a literature review to see what was published in relation to nutrition and labor productivity. And we see that the standing theory was based in the traditional view that it's called the nutrition weight hypothesis, that was coined as early as 1957 by Liechtenstein. That says that, more calories, provided more calories gives higher productivity that leads to higher wages. However, many studies that were conducted since then with this approach found mixed results. Many of the studies did find a positive association, a direct association between calories and higher wages, but others didn't find any association, or even some of them an inverse association. And in addition to that, there was an emerging evidence highlighting that it was not only calories, but the nutrients inside those calories, or the quality of the diet, had also an impact on the wages. So we did this shift in focus, from calories and macronutrients like carbs, fats, and proteins, that are the nutrients that yield calories within the diet, to take a broader perspective, include micronutrients that are vitamins and minerals that do not provide calories. So our approach for the next work that we were going to present here was to integrate the micronutrient intake into the analysis of labor productivity. Next, please. So the aims of these works were, first, to examine the relationship between micronutrient intake and labor productivity, and that's what is shown in that paper published earlier this year. And then to integrate food security and nutrition mechanisms as drivers of labor productivity in a CGE framework, and apply the methodology in a real-world case study in Kenya by developing a dynamic baseline for Kenya and exploring policy scenarios such as food subsidies. That is the content of the paper 2 that we will present after. Next slide. So just to introduce that first work, as I said, the objective was to analyze the linkages between micronutrient intake and labor productivity that is measured by household labor income, and Priscilla will give you more detail on that. The scope of this work was the whole country, whole Kenya, and stratified by rural and urban population, as well as by households that had predominant skilled labor productivity versus unskilled labor productivity. And finally, just a comment on the databases that we used for this analysis. As I said, we used the Integrated Household Budget Survey, and we used the year 2015 and 2016, and the food consumption module. However, in the food consumption model, what you have is reported the foods that have been consumed that you have to convert into nutrients. And in order to do that, you need to construct first what is called a nutrients conversion table. The nutrients conversion table, it's made using the foods that are consumed and reported in the household budget survey, plus the food composition table that tells you what are the nutrients that compose those foods. And you need a food composition table for the population you are studying. Luckily enough, we had an updated and comprehensive food composition table. That was the 2018 Kenya food composition table that we used to create this Kenya nutrition conversion table that has also been published. And this was used to create the food security and nutrition indicators that Priscilla will describe next. Over to you, Priscilla.
Thank you, Estefania. Okay, so with this introduction, with these objectives for the case of Kenya, now our strategy, empirical strategy, is to estimate which is the relationship between micronutrient intake and labor productivity in the particular case of Kenya, using the data that Estefania has explained. So for that, we will run an econometric estimation for labor productivity through a semi-logarithmic wage equation based on the literature at the household level. We will run this regression at national for national households, but also split it according to rural and urban location of household, and also split it household based on the prevalence of skilled or unskilled work inside. So for that, this is our econometric regression we will run based on the nutrient wage hypothesis. And our dependent variable will be, in this case, a dependent variable that we use as proxy of labor productivity. For the case of Kenya, at the national level for all sectors, will be the monthly labor income, that is the basic salary that appeared in the Kenya household survey. It is measured at the household level and computed in the basis of adult male equivalent. That means it considers the composition of the household. That means in terms of sex, in terms of ages of household members. This labor productivity will be regressed against nutrients variable. We have two types of nutrient variable. First, the daily energy consumption, that is a measure of calorie intake per adult male equivalent at the household level. And a second set of nutrients that are daily intakes of micronutrients mainly, that is calcium, iron from animal sources, folate, zinc, and some vitamins. That means A, B2, B12, and C. All the micronutrients measured at the adult male equivalent and at the household level. Then we have another control variables, another, for example, the FIES, that is in our case a measure of severe food insecurity indicator based on the question that express severe food insecurity. This indicator is calculated at the household level too. And we have some traditional drivers for labor productivity also inside this equation that is related to education of the household members, that is economically active members that achieve a complete formal education, primary, secondary, or university, and also a health-related variable that is about disability and disease, chronic diseases of one or more members at the household level. So with this strategy, econometric strategy, we first start studying what we have in our variables. So first, we undertake an analysis of a descriptive statistic of our variables. First, we run bivariate analysis. That means we regress the labor productivity measured by the wages against each of our independent variables. That means the calories and the macronutrients and the micronutrients too, and also the variables related to education and health, to identify which are the most important variables to do a first selection this variable. And then in the bivariate analysis, we find that there is a more significant relationship between labor productivity and nutrients, and also with calories. And the sign expected was okay. For example, when there is an increase in the calories intake, labor productivity would improve. And also when we consider some micronutrients such as iron or even calcium or some vitamins too. Then, to analyze the situation of households, we ran non-parametric regressions between each micronutrients at the household level across percentile of household income per adult male equivalent, and we find some deficit in terms of micronutrient intake. This is just an example, but you can see more in the paper. For example, here in the red line, it is the threshold, the minimum threshold for a daily iron intake from animal sources, and this is a recommendation. And this is the situation of households in Kenya, where all households, independently of their level of income, are below the recommendation. With this analysis, we select our variables, nutrients variable that we will keep in our multivariate regression, and we run the regression, and our results are presented at the national level and also split by stratified household according to the prevalence of skilled and unskilled workers, or according to their location, rural or urban. All the estimates are significant, and either at both national and also at the other stratified food household. So let's see in details what happened related to the nutrients with the relation between labor productivity and nutrients in our econometric results. Let me start by looking at the national regression. All households are inside here in the case of Kenya, and our first result shows that there is a positive relationship between micronutrients and labor productivity. That means labor productivity in the case of Kenya will increase when we improve calcium, iron from animal sources, zinc, folate, B2 and BA intakes in the case of Kenya. But we find that there is, for example, a negative sign for calories. When we increase calories, labor productivity will not increase but reduce in this case. The hypothesis related to this result is that it could be empty calories inside. That means calories that not contribute in terms of nutrients to people, and particularly for labor productivity, and it comes from the consumption of ultra-processed foods, and which not contribute in terms of nutrients, but just in terms of calories. So this is one result of important result we get from this study, and that can say that labor productivity increase due to diet quality, that means micronutrients mainly, rather than quantities that need not really related to calories intakes. And this result found at the national level are also the same for the different stratification of household inside the country. So what we have until now? First, we have estimated the econometric relationship between labor productivity and micronutrients. That means they highlighting the importance of the diet quality in labor productivity. And now we want to couple these results or to extend this result to see what is the impact in terms of economic variables, in terms of the whole economic system. That means in the next step, we'll analyze which could be the pathway mechanism to come from nutrients, labor productivity through economic growth in a more comprehensive framework that is a CGE model. And in that case, it allows us to close the circle and analyze trade, development, fiscal policies, agricultural policies to see the impact between nutrients intake, labor productivity, and economic performance. So for this second work, to introduce the relationship between micronutrients and labor productivity into the baseline of a CGE model, we consider our basic starting point, a CGE model called the METRA, which is a model used at the GRC team. This is a single country recursive dynamic open economy CGE model. In this case, this model will be calibrated for the case of Kenya, and the social accounting matrix was also developed by this GRC team. This social accounting matrix has 19 agri-food commodities, and the country is split in this social accounting matrix in 8 agroecological zones. Zones are split also in terms of rural and urban households, and cities like Mombasa and Nairobi displayed different representative households based on quintiles of income. For this work, to couple the micronutrients to labor productivity in this CGE framework, we need first to do some matching, data sources matching between the household survey information and the social accounting matrix disaggregations. So the first one is to match food items from the household survey, which is very, very detailed, to the 19 agri-food commodities that appear in the sum. This is quite easy because the social accounting matrix was built based on this same household survey. And then also to match the counties from the household survey to the agroecological zones in the social accounting matrix. These matchings were also used in our previous papers, that are these 3. And an additional aspect we need to add in this module to improve labor productivity with micronutrients is to introduce a new set, a set that consider the micronutrients which are the most important. According to our econometric estimation, we have chosen the iron from non-animal sources, zinc, vitamin A and vitamin B2, which are the most important in terms of impacts. Elasticity that come from our econometric estimation are greater for these 4 micronutrients, so we will focus on their impact in terms of our labor productivity in the model baseline. And so the elasticities, which is one parameter we need in the model, will be are taken from our previous analysis, a previous econometric estimation, and we also need another parameter that represents the contribution of each agri-food commodity included in the diet of each representative household in terms of each micronutrient, that means each of these 4, in the basis of daily intakes per adult male equivalent. That means the share of each food item contribution in terms of micronutrients, each of micronutrients. That is important because it's a sort of weight we will use in our model to link quantities of food to intakes, micronutrients intakes of each of the foods. So this is just to present you, this is the current definition of labor productivity in the METRA model. The change in the labor productivity is explained by a basic initial value of labor productivity, and this initial value of labor productivity could be improved by education and health expenses, according mainly even for private sector and also from public sector. So here is the traditional labor productivity drivers, education and health. In this word, we want to add an additional term that explains which is the additional impact on the improvement of labor productivity introduced by micronutrients intakes. You know, here are the 4 micronutrients we will consider for according to the consumption of each household age. And these are some information in terms of calibration of these indicators, that the change in micronutrient intake in each of the household will be coupled with the consumption. And the consumption of each food items come from the model, a variable of the model, that is the consumption of each food item. Here C represents the food items. But the food item, this is consumption per capita because this is here is population. And in this particular case, micronutrients will depend on the consumption per capita of each commodity that will be linked through the share of, that means the contribution of each food in terms of nutrients, in terms of micronutrients, not to the labor productivity. Something important to know that in the social accounting matrix, we differentiate, for example, products that is own produce or sell or buy through the market. Here, for this nutritional objective, it is the same for consumption, for consumer, for labors in particular, if the product comes from market or this own produce. So it is an additional mapping that is required in this case. Just our technical aspects. So go to more interesting other questions. In this exercise, first we will test the behavior of this new baseline, this new equation of labor productivity, where micronutrients is an additional driver and on the basis of the traditional one of health and education. So two baseline will be compared without micronutrients in labor productivity and with micronutrients in labor productivity. And then we will run an exercise that assumes that 10% a 10% increase in sales subsidies on healthy foods. That means we have chosen a set of foods that we consider healthy and also relatively cleaner in environmental terms. For example, here you don't see beef because beef is intensive in methane emissions, so we consider to let it aside, even it is an important source of iron in particular case, but there is not a unique. We have also fish, and we have other, which is of course lead emission intensive. So this is a set of products where we benefit from this subsidy, sales subsidy. And we will start first comparing the baseline and then to see which are the results in terms of the new subsidies. So let me start by the baseline comparison with and without macronutrients in terms of labor productivity. Here we are showing the additional labor productivity change in percent points associated with micronutrients by agroecological zones in the case of Kenya. This is the comparison between the baseline with and without micronutrients in labor productivity equation. And we can see this is the additional percentage point we can find in terms of labor productivity improvement when we consider the current consumption of nutrients through food consumption. So, given the current consumption patterns, micronutrients introduce additional gains in labor productivity in the case of Kenya, at national level, of course, and also here that is split by agroecological zones. Here, for example, we can find that the greatest impact comes from cities that are Nairobi in blue and Mombasa in orange. And these greater labor productivity gains in cities come particularly from the improvement in poorest quintals, coupled with cities where are more facilities to access to food, to healthy food. That means in terms of infrastructure, in terms of market access. And also, of course, due to other development conditions related to education, related to transport and health. Now, if we, that was in terms of baseline, in terms of the labor productivity, and now if we look at the GDP, which is our proxy of economic growth in the model, we can see that this is the additional increase in percentage point 2 of the GDP when we compare baseline with and without micronutrients as labor productivity driver. And we can see the additional percentage point in the GDP growth by the 2030 is plus 0.24 percentage points, and it shows it is also in line with the literature that said that economic benefits of the good diet, a balanced diet, would be manifested in the medium-long run process. So this is what we find in our result, and it is also mentioned in the literature. It's not something immediate, but it's something that we can find in the medium-long term. Now, in terms of the result of the scenario, the exercise of sales subsidies for healthy food, we can find that most important impact in terms of consumption will come from dairy products. That is this blue, that the fish, fruits and vegetables, oils, that also includes nuts, and vegetables also include pulses. So sales subsidy on healthy food mainly impacts on this set of products, food items, that is oils, nuts, pulses, eggs, and dairy products and fruits. And this increases in terms of consumption of these particular products also lead to an increase in micronutrient intakes for household. That means pulses, that is rich in zinc, will also push then the performance of level of productivity and also have an impact in terms of economic aspect. Eggs, dairy products, and fruits are rich in vitamin A, and nuts are rich in vitamin B. So the results in terms of labor productivity for this subsidy on healthy food is positive. The mechanism is quite similar to those we presented in the comparison of both baselines. This is the additional percentage points in isolating micronutrients when having this subsidy. And now, if we consider the impact in terms of GDP, we can see that the result is negative. The result is negative in terms of GDP because we are introducing the subsidy, and according to the closure of the model, CGA model, we have also a negative aspect in terms of other expenses of government, for example, in terms of health, in terms of education and other public services. So the impact is negative in terms of GDP. But if we compare subsidies run with micronutrients in labor productivity and subsidies run without micronutrients in labor productivity, that is the classical version of the model, we can see that GDP fall less when we consider the mechanism of micronutrients in labor productivity. Subsidies has a negative effect on the economy, as we can see, and the inclusion of micronutrient intake as labor productivity driver helps to mitigate that negative impact. Okay, so just to conclude, to summarize maybe the results, as Estefania said at the beginning of this presentation, nutritional challenges invite us to investigate this aspect, particularly to couple the result between nutrients and improvement in nutrition for population, and also with the improvement of economic aspect, economic growth. And the link will be through labor productivity, from nutrition to growth. And the later two in general highlight this aspect, but not particular in terms of the quality of the diet that we have addressed here in our first paper. And this relationship, the result we find here is a significant and positive econometric relationship between labor productivity improvement and key micronutrients intake, particularly from iron, animal origin, zinc, vitamin A, and vitamin B, which shows a graded estimate as elasticities. This estimate helps us to go further, modeling this relationship between micronutrients and labor productivity in a CGE framework, and doing some tests for this particular case of Kenya, running a baseline comparison and running an exercise of subsidies over healthy food. And we can find that improving nutritional aspect of the diet could be an important aspect to economic growth in these developing countries such as Kenya. Of course, this is an additional point, an additional increase in labor productivity based on the education and health, which are the traditional driver for labor productivity. But as we show as we see in the last exercise of subsidies, scenarios should be well designed, because we can have unexpected or unexpected unwanted results that could be the reduction of GDP or negative aspects. So we need to find policies that enhance positive effects of nutrition without reducing the effects of other labor productivity drivers, that mean the expenditure in terms of education and health. Our next steps, since this is a work in progress, particularly the last one, is not already published. Our next steps are, first, to find a case study, a particular case study for a nutritional program in the case of Kenya, where we can really test what will be the impact of improving micronutrient intakes. For the moment, we have done this exercise of sales subsidies for healthy diet, but there could be another possibilities or other instrument that could be also test and also be thinking as policy in Kenya programs and plans. So our next step is to find an interesting study case for Kenya. test our model. And the second point of view, they could be important to consider that these changes or these programs could be related to finance fortification of food, or even biofortification of food through land fertilizer, GOM seeds, which is related to a modern agriculture. And in terms of the model, that will require an additional model to introduce new technologies of producing food, fortified food, and also to produce agricultural commodities considering biofortification techniques. So it's our next exploration for this work, and if you have some suggestions also in terms of the potential scenarios or something important to consider in programs for improving nutrition, labor productivity, and economic growth in the case of Kenya, your comments are really welcome. And just to finish, final comment, I said Emanuele Ferrari. This new model that link micronutrients to labor productivity in the CGE frame could be also used for other countries. Of course, it requires a hard work in terms of data because we need to build first the NCT for that country and do some matching between micro data, survey data with the social accounting matrix, and do all this work again. In terms of modeling, is the same. In terms of data, is of course country specific. Okay, these are the references of the works that were presented, and we thank you for your attention, and we wait for your comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Priscilla and Stefania, also for timing. That was perfectly respected. Thanks a lot. So there have been already some
questions,
going on in the both the chat and the Q&A. So
Yeah.
for the Q&A, I can report one question that we received. If you want to answer that, well, it's in French, but I can try to translate it. And why did you choose to disaggregate into the sum between skilled and unskilled? And is whether a gender disaggregation have been as interested as the one that you took into account? That is the question in the Q&A session. I don't know if you want to pick this up, Priscilla, directly.
Yes. Okay. In fact, here in the regression, we are running at the national level for the labor productivity for all. Sorry. For all. Okay. Yes. Okay. So in the estimation of the econometric estimation of labor productivity, it's first run for every household, but inside the household there are some heterogeneity. So we wanted to differentiate household where there is a prevalence of skilled workers from those which are unskilled, because labor productivity could be really different between skilled and unskilled workers presented in a household. That's why we did this separation, this differentiation. If it is possible to do in terms of gender, we didn't run that. Maybe you remember, Stefania, I think we didn't run that because we consider at but it could be maybe thinking about if the head of the household is a female or a male, we could do that. I don't remember if we did that. I don't think so. It is possible maybe to see if there is any difference. Yes, I think it could be, but we didn't. Maybe, I don't know if you have Stefania, some additional, something like that I forget.
No, I remember that we discussed the gender
Yeah.
segregation, and we tried different ways, but we were not sure. We were reflecting what we wanted to reflect the gender perspective. That's why we finally didn't take that step, although we considered it and we discussed it internally.
I may add something. Probably we were also thinking about sort of correspondence with our SEM, with the SEM of Kenya. So at the household level, we have the differentiation between skilled, unskilled, rural, and urban. So thinking on a sort of follow-up kind of exercise, we were focusing only on the household disaggregation we have in the Kenyan SEM.
Thank you. I think it's post.
Thank you. There is another question. You want to go ahead, Kwako?
Yeah, there are a couple of questions actually. There are about 7 of them. I don't know whether time will allow us to take all of them. So I'll go straight to the questions. I think for the question 2, it has been answered. That talked about why specific minerals were chosen and why were only 4 of them. I think it's been answered that the relevant micronutrients that could explain the labor productivity were the ones that were chosen. The next question is on the 10%. Is the participant is asking whether the 10% sales subsidy was informed by actual policy targets by the government. I don't know whether you are clear with that. The 10% sales subsidy, was it something that came from the government, or it was arbitrarily chosen for the analysis? Would you want to take all the questions, or you want to take them one after the other so that I would know how to?
We can answer.
Maria?
So yes, we can answer.
Okay.
Okay. Concerning why 4 micronutrients, we have chosen that because they are most important. The elasticities are greater. So then when we introduce those elasticity, those impacts in the CG model, we will be sure that we will have an impact. It could be also to add the others, but really the estimates, they were really very slow. The elasticity were really small, sorry. So we have chosen 4 of that, which are important, and we have also some deficits, nutritional deficits in the case of Kenya, and also because they were econometrically more important in terms of magnitude. They're always all were significant, but in terms of magnitude of the impact, they were greater, and we have chosen that to see those results in the CG simulation.
And if I might add just to that vitamin A, zinc, and iron are also the micronutrients with greater public health importance in environments where malnutrition is prevalent. So that also was aligned with our results. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So the 10%?
And the 10% is just an exercise. Yeah. We have no justification for that. It's just an exercise. That's why we are looking for a real scenario that could be policy interesting in the case of Kenya, to test a real policy or program to see what would be the impact in terms of nutrition, in terms of labor productivity and growth. Yeah.
Yeah. So the results would have probably changed if we had chosen another level.
Yes, of course, and it was just an exercise, a test of the model, if they were working well, and it's just a first exercise. It's a work in progress in that sense. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So in the interest of time, Manuel, I'll just put one more question. The rest of the questions will be shared with the presenters so that when they respond, we'll give the feedback to the participants. So in the interest of time, let me just take one more. So in the model, labor productivity was a function of education and health, but you extended this to include micronutrients. Can you
Yes.
explain this a bit more?
The
Yeah.
equation is the change of the improvement in labor productivity. We start from an initial level of labor productivity, and what we add is how labor productivity increase when, for example, government spend more money in terms of education compared to the year before, in terms of health. And here we add the component of if people eat better in terms of nutrients, and how that the food consumption they change year by year, add in terms of micronutrients, and the key macronutrients, these 4 micronutrients, that will be considered as improved labor productivity based on our estimate, our relationship, our econometric relationship we find before. So our results we present here show the additional increase in labor productivity when we add this component of micronutrient intakes in labor productivity, when people increase consumption of some particular products which are rich in these 4 micronutrients we consider. Of course, there are some technical aspects and calibration parameters that more detailed in the report we have, but in terms of how is the behavior, is that.
Right. So, Emmanuel, I think we can proceed to the second presentation, and then if we're able to save some time, then we will take on the rest of the questions.
No,
Yes.
I think there is no more presentation.
We're having only one today.
Sorry,
Okay.
no, they
So
joined the presentation, so
Yes.
I think
Right.
we can continue
Very
with the
good.
question.
Okay, then let's pick up the questions, more questions for Maria and the other Estefania. So the next question is on the meat consumption. The question is, for majority of individuals in ASALs, most of them consume meats as their main source of food.
Mm-hmm.
So meat is already consumed as the main source of food, and it's also included in the model. So the question is, won't this result in some biases in the analysis?
Yes, I respond to the question in the
Yes.
chat. I mean, I was actually wondering in what direction would Isabella think that the results would be biased. Because if I mean, the thing is that we consider the Kenya National Budget Survey in order to estimate the nutrient consumption. And in this national survey, the results that we have, and even for all zones, is that the macronutrient that is most deficient is heme iron, that is present in meat. No, it's one of the macronutrients that is mainly provided by meat. So I'm not sure I understand the question of in what direction would she think that the results would be biased.
Just a second, let me get the one who asked the question, and maybe he or she can throw more light. Or if you can hear me too, just a second.
Yes, no, I'm seeing here in the chat that Isabella is saying, in the presentation was indicated that meat was not considered. Not sure if I got it right.
So this from Isabella.
For the subsidy, it was not considered for the subsidy. It was also a contradiction, a discussion between us, because it's to benefit meat for subsidy or not, because in terms of nutrients, it's a great source of heme iron. So in terms of in nutritional term, it is important to push to meat consumption, but if we push to meat consumption, we could have an adverse impact in terms of greenhouse gas emission, particularly because we are pushing to meat production, and that is coupled with methane emissions. So we decided to let aside meat for the moment and to benefit with the subsidy other sources of heme iron that could be, for example, fish in the diet. And there is non-animal too there are other sources of iron which are not animal too in the matrix. Yeah.
Right. I think Isabella says she's okay with it, so that's a good one. Yes. So the next question is says, for the sales subsidy, Kenya is focusing more on production subsidies as opposed to consumption subsidies. Could we see effect of production subsidies in producing those crops, such as vegetables, pulses, fish, and the rest? So the question is, could we see the effect of production subsidies in these crops? Because Kenya is focusing more on production subsidies instead of consumption subsidies. So what was used in the model was more of consumption subsidy.
I don't know if Martina, you want to answer, but I can, yeah.
Yeah, I can say something on that for sure. Well, the idea was here to focus on the consumption side of the economy, since we are considering the effects of additional micronutrients intake through the diet on the consumer. So the idea was modeling something that could push the consumer towards increasing good quality food. So we set aside the production side, but actually you're right. This is something that we can do, and we will probably explore somehow with the future future agenda we have with Priscilla and Stephanie and Sofia. So in principle, yes, we can focus on the production side. And this comment, I think it's very useful for us because we are looking for effective policy. So we want to know which kind of exercise to run with the new equation, labor productivity equation in the model to assess some kind of real Kenyan policy. So if you are saying that the Kenyan government is focusing more on the production side, this is something that we are happy to know, and we can also explore with you how we could simulate properly this kind of policy with the model we have.
Yeah, that's good. Yes. So, is there any other addition? Otherwise, I go to the next question. The next question is says that you matched the sum with a survey, and you know the sum covers other agents, economic agents in the country, such as the firms, the government, and others. So the survey that was matched with the sum, and did you consider other actors in the economy, such as firms, governments, in the survey that you conducted, or it was specific to just the household?
I can answer.
I know that the question is,
in fact,
okay.
Yes. You know, in the social accounting matrix, in fact, to build the social accounting matrix, maybe Emanuele, you are the better to explain this. To build the social accounting matrix, you also need survey for firms and survey for households. So, and the government and the relation with the rest of the world. So all that information about firms, government, the rest of the world is already included in the social accounting matrix. Here, what we have done is to couple the details we keep in the household survey. That's mean only household, and we focus on the consumption model, food consumption model particularly, with the sum. So we keep details from the household from the household survey in terms of food consumption, and to couple that with the information we already have at the social accounting matrix, where households are also represented, but in a more aggregated way and with some particular characteristics. And that's what we have done. We were particularly in details with the household survey, but particularly for the model of food consumption in details, and coupled that with the social accounting matrix, what was already built based on this survey, but it is more aggregated.
Okay. Okay. So the last but one question that I have says that how did you arrive at the nutrient consumption in this study? The nutrient consumption scores. How did you arrive at them?
I don't know if I understand the question. Sorry.
There's a long preamble to the question, but I didn't want to read. But if to make it clear, let me just read it. It says,
Okay.
in calculating nutrient intake, we calculate the actual intake, that is grams or whatever amount being consumed, and imputed in programs such as CSC dietary, and then integrates with the food consumption table, recipes, database, and conversion factors. So that's the preamble to the question, and it's now asking how were the nutrients consumption arrived at in this study?
I can take that one.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
proceed.
thank you for that question. I mean, it's actually when we build the nutrients conversion table, we are doing exactly what you're saying. So what we are doing is we are taking the values from the food composition table, and we are applying the conversion factors associated with the recipes. So that's basically what we do. And as I said, that is one publication done about it, because in this case, in other cases, the recipes, or if the foods consumed are cooked or not, is not taken into account, but we did take it into account. And is this one of the publications that we have that was presented in one of my slides? It actually describes the process, that is taking the information from the food composition tables, taking the conversion tables, but putting all that in statistically in one program to actually get the nutrient intake.
All right. So I said the last question, but I've just another one in the chat, but let me take this one first. It says, we see sales subsidy on final consumer commodities has a negative effect on GDP. So there's a negative relationship between consumer commodities and GDP. It says perhaps there's a production subsidy. Perhaps production subsidy could have had a positive impact on GDP. I think this one is just a comment, and maybe I would want to pick your minds on that. If we had used a production subsidy, would we have seen a positive impact on GDP?
It really depends first on the closure of the model, and here we have, when the government subsidize is part of the putting money in some particular sector, in some particular products, incentive consumption. But if we consider the government has a restricted budget, when he decided to put subsidies in a sector or for production or consumption, he will reduce expenses on the other side for other public services. In this case, education, for example, health, that also impact in labor productivity and growth. And that's what is happening in our simulation. Of course, we can think another closure of the model that could be linked for a greater depth, because it will, or to think another tax to finance this subsidy. So some cross fiscal decisions, cross fiscal instrument in terms of the design of the policy. But generally, we expect this kind of result according to the closure we are assuming in this particular case, because the budget is restricted and we don't have another ways to finance this subsidy, this particular subsidy we are introducing in this case. So maybe we can think another kind of the closures, to another alternatives to finance this subsidy, and to see what could be the situation. If the closure is the same, a subsidy to consumption or a subsidy to production would have the same impact in terms of government budget in this case, and it will, the result could be also negative. It's something to test and to see, and maybe Emanuele, you have a better explanation than mine, because you know better than me this the METRA model and alternative closure of the model.
Right.
Okay.
Sorry,
No,
So
it
maybe-
might be.
before.
Yeah, go ahead,
I
Martin.
have something before.
Yeah.
Well, that of course, when you run any kind of policy simulation, the first interest is looking at the effects on GDP, and that's normal. And if you see that they are negative, you immediately say, "Oh, is it okay? Is it fine?" In this specific case, our intention was not simulating something with a positive effect on GDP, but checking that the additional addend we added to the productivity formula worked well. And this is the case. So having inside the productivity relation something that relates micronutrient intakes to labor productivity is working well. And the negative impacts of the subsidy on the GDP is reduced thanks to the micronutrients we are considering. So this is the message we want to give you with this simulation. That is, we have modified the model to include the relationship between increased micronutrient intakes and productivity. And this new relationship is working well. So negative effects on GDP are somehow reduced thanks to this. Of course, if we simulated something that would increase positively the impact on GDP, probably our new kind of relationship we are taking into account micronutrients and labor productivity would push up further the positive impact on GDP. So this is the message. If we take into account micronutrients, negative effects are reduced and probably positive would be enhanced. So this is the message, fine? I want just to stress this point. Emanuele, if you want to add what you had in mind, thanks.
No, just say that probably, yeah, it's true that when if you play with the production side rather than the consumption side, you might have slightly different effect on GDP, but probably not that much. I think what you said is definitely true. Marco, are you there? Seems frozen. So take it from here. There is one question on the econometrics that I think is not answered. That was whether there was an attempt to control for endogeneity. Shadrach is saying that households with wages may be the ones accessing nutrition, while access to nutrition may influence productivity and wages. Well, okay, it's about the endogeneity on the econometric side. And then we have another in the Q&A. But if you want to take this one before. I guess Priscilla knows.
Yes, we
Prefer-
have it's a key point. We have do some tests because the way to solve this is introducing some instrumental variables, and among the information we have at the household level, we test different instrumental variables, and they were not really improving our results, and they were not the key instruments for to avoid this econometric problem. But we know that it could be endogeneity in our estimation. We try to isolate, but we think it's a caveat that because of the data, we don't have a way to do that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and
Yes,
I might.
yes.
Yeah, I might add this second question that says, well, households with wages may be the ones accessing nutrition, while access to nutrition may influence productivity and wages. We have included that in the limitation of the paper. If you read it, we are aware of that, and well, that is the results at one point in time that can go in both directions, so we are aware. Thank you.
All right. That is noted. I dropped off a bit, but I don't know whether the last question was taken on technology. Okay, so the participant wants to find out why technology was not considered in the estimation or in the model, was not included in the model, as it plays a pivotal role in improving labor productivity. So we know the relationship between labor productivity and technology, but in the model, that was missing. Why was technology not considered?
In fact, it was not the purpose of our work. That's why, because we are focused on the impact of nutrition on labor productivity and not on technology on labor productivity. And so we start from the base, the meta model as it is, that is where labor productivity is driven by education and health expenditure, and we focus on the impact of nutrient aspect. If we improve nutrition of people, how labor productivity could be improved and could be a drive for growth. So that's why. Maybe it's another question, another paper.
we assume that is captured in the error 10, right? So.
Yeah, but I think, as you also rightly said before, now you're looking at the change in so you're basically assuming that there is no change in the technology, and so no change in the productivity affected by change in technology. So yeah, it's one of the ceteris paribus typical of this model, that everything that we do not shock is kept constant. So that's basically
the error 10. Okay. All right.
The answer to that.
Yeah. That's okay, right? So I don't see any more questions in the chat. So, okay, Shadrach, congratulations to the authors for the well done. Okay, somebody is commending you for what you've done, and so congratulations and thank you so much. Somebody is also clapping. Yeah. So, Emmanuel, I think these are the only ones we have in the chat. Let me hand over to you, or do the closing.
Yeah, great. So thank you very much. Thank you, first of all, Priscilla, Martina, Stefania, and Sofia that couldn't be with us today for somehow kicking off this seminars webinar that, as I said, I hope it will be serious. As a matter of fact, we are already working on the second one that should take place on the 2nd of June. But we will send an official message and invitation to everybody that should looking at migration issues with specific case for Ethiopia, so that I already have a small appetizer for the next one. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you to FARA colleagues to provide also the nice environment to this, and the technology then to record, and that we can also share the webinar more widely after close it. So as said, we will share the link of the recording, and we will share the materials that will be provided by the presenters, both the presentation and papers and reports that have been provided. I would say that if you have any other additional questions, you can either get in direct contact with Priscilla, Martina, Stefania, or with us at PANAP, with me, with Kwaku, and we will pass the question and then get in contact with the presenters. As they said, I think it's a very interesting research stream that we should try to exploit. So continue the work also with the colleagues in Kipra and Kenya on this topic, and perhaps if someone from other countries are interested in looking at similar work, it will be interesting to see whether we can expand to other countries. And said that, again, thank you everybody for joining. I hope you had some nice and useful information, and it was useful for everybody. And I would say that see you all in a month or so. The idea is to have monthly, excluding the summer, but the idea is to try to have a monthly appointment with this kind of presentation.
Right. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you so much. And on behalf of the Executive Director of FARA, so add my voice to Emmanuel and say thank you. And be looking out for the upcoming series. We'll be sharing the links and all the notes from this webinar as well. So thank you so much, and we hope to see you in our next webinar session. Thank you, and have a good one. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.